Amen. Good. Welcome everyone to our Natural Remedies seminar. And I'm going to be going through a few natural remedies tonight. You see, the human body was designed to heal itself, and it'll heal itself if you give it the right conditions. And there's a little book that I often use. It's called The Ministry of Healing. And there's a chapter in there called The Physician, the Healer. And it's not just for the physician. It's actually for all of us, because we should be our own doctors. And it says in there that nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and the impatient, it seems slow. And it says that when you give the body the right conditions, it will start to heal itself. And something else it says is that we need to have a knowledge of nature's remedial agencies and how to apply them. One of my favourite pages is 127 of this book, and it's in that chapter, The Physician, the Healer. And it says in there that in case of sickness, 3 things should happen. Number 1, the cause should be ascertained. Wrong conditions changed, or unhealthful conditions changed. Wrong habits corrected. And then the 4th one is, then nature is to be assisted in her efforts to expel impurities and re-establish right conditions back in the system. And that's what I'm going to do this evening. I'm going to show you some of those things that you can do to the body to bring about a healing condition in the body. My book at home is heavily graffitied because of all the things that I've underlined in it. And what I love about this book, it looks at healing not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually and emotionally. So it's an excellent book that I'd like to promote. So let's have a look at some of the things that you do to boost that healing in the body. The first thing I'm going to have a look at is the humble onion. Now, the home I'm staying at the moment, the onions are all very little, so we've actually got a whole heap of onions that we're going to use. And I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do with onion. And I'm very thankful to onion. It was the first poultice that I ever did. I was 26. My eldest daughter was 16 months old. Actually, when this happened, I was 25. And she got an earache. And because I've been trained as a nurse, and I was interested in back to nature, being a hippie, but I didn't know what to do when the child was sick. So I went to the doctor. The doctor put Emma on antibiotics because everyone said, don't play with the ears, she'll go deaf. Do you know, we should never make decisions on fear. We should make decisions on fact. So, of course, I thought, I don't want my child to go deaf, so I went to the doctor who put the child on antibiotics because he said she had an ear infection. So within about 24 hours of being on the antibiotic, the earache settled down. The course lasted for 5 days. Within 24 hours of stopping the antibiotics, the earache came back. I didn't know what to do, went back to the doctor. 6 weeks later, 4 courses of antibiotics later, the earache comes back. Now, what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results, but I didn't know what else to do. I was ignorant, as so many are. So I went back to the doctor. He's writing the 5th course of antibiotics, and I was really challenged. I said to him, 1 question, will my daughter be on antibiotics for the rest of her life? Am I coming to that conclusion? He was challenged by my question. So he said, I'll give you a referral to an ear, nose and throat specialist. I went to the ear, nose and throat specialist. He looked in Emma's ears. He looked in Emma's mouth. He said, the child's teething. Give her these drops to keep the eustachian tubes clear. That was it. You see, our eustachian tubes are tubes that connect our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ear. I have since learned that wheat and dairy and refined sugar are 3 of the main causes of earaches in children. Let's fast forward. 2 years later, child number 2 is about the same age. Child number 2 gets an earache. I do not go to the doctor. I went to the old lady next door. I was about 26 by now, and she was 86. I said, what did your mother do when you had an earache? She said, Mum would steam up an onion on the stove. So I went home, I steamed up an onion in the stove. When it was all soft, I wrapped it in a cloth, I put it on James' ear, James fell asleep, James slept for 2 hours. What does that tell you? He's not in pain. James woke up happy. All day I'm following him around. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. 4 courses of antibiotics, 6 weeks, and a 2-hour onion poultice. No wonder that experience set me on the path of natural remedies. So it's with great joy I show you how to make an onion poultice. So you steam an onion on the stove and you steam it like this. It's got to have that little core there, which will hold it all together. Now steam it or dry bake it. If you boil it, some of the healing properties will go into the water. So steam it or dry bake it. And when it is soft, you cut it in half. And you cut it in half so that you're looking at the rings. And what you can do when you've cut it in half, remember this is hot and boiling, squeeze some of the juice into a teaspoon. Now that will be boiling, but when it's squeezed into the teaspoon, the cold teaspoon of course will cool it, and you can put that into the ear. And then you will wrap this up. And you can wrap it up with a tea towel or a hand towel, a cloth, or maybe even a chucks. Now, most onions are a bit bigger than this. Usually I would do an onion that would fit your ear. And so you wrap it up until you can bear that temperature. And then that surface area there, you would put straight on the ear. And then you cover it with a piece of plastic. What did they do before plastic? A square of wool, and you're in New Zealand, the land of sheep. You can certainly use a square of wool. And then you might put a beanie on. Do you call those beanies, those little woolen hats? Or you might bandage it on. Or sometimes the person might lay down with that into the pillow. You see that? But if you can keep it warm, you keep it on. So as long as you can keep it warm, you keep it on. Now what will the onion do? The onion is a drawer, and it will draw the inflammation, reduce the inflammation. It'll break down any pussy areas, and that can be taken away from through the bloodstream. Sometimes it will do just that. It will reduce the swelling, and that will be taken away through the bloodstream, or sometimes the ear will make a hole and the pus will come out through there. Don't worry if that happens, because if the body makes a hole in the ear, it'll easily heal. And how else does the pus get out? Now, if someone pokes a sharp instrument and makes a hole in your eardrum, you're in trouble. But if the body does it, the body knows what to do. You just got to give it the right conditions. How do you know what the right conditions are? Well, I knew this was the right condition on James, because what was the result? He slept. He was in no more pain. See that there's some of your signs. The body will speak to you. So a cooked onion on the ear is one of the best things for earaches. How long do you need to keep it on? Well, as long as it takes. When it gets cold, take it off. If the earache returns in a few hours, put it back on again. You just keep doing it until the body says enough. In fact, one of our workers, she wore an onion poultice for a week. Every day to come back, so every day she'd go back on. Who are you listening to? The body. And she would get relief. The body's going, that's what I want. After 7 days, no more earache came back. Sometimes we don't know why. This lady eats and lives really well. Maybe something was just coming out from her childhood, or maybe she had a gluten and a dairy intolerance then, and maybe she had a lot of earaches then. You know, sometimes we don't know why. But the body knows why, and it will tell you if this is the right thing to do. Now I'm going to look at there's one other area for cooked onion, and that is on a boil. And with a boil, let's say that knuckle is a boil, you steam it, and of course you don't put the boiling onion right on. You let it cool. It'll cool quite quickly, and when you can cope with it, you put it on, and you put a bit of plastic on and bandage it on. And you might leave it overnight. You might leave it all day. You can leave it for a while, and that onion will draw the waste into itself, and when you take it off, often when you take it off, everything comes out. It's drawn it all into that area. So it brings relief, because what you've got the heat, which will bring everything to it, and you've also got the drawing, healing properties of the onion. So they're the two places that you can use cooked onion. Now we're going to have a look at raw onion. And often when you cut an onion, what happens? You start crying, is that right? And that's a good illustration of what the onion does. It's very good at clearing all the eustachian tubes. So it's a good time to cut up an onion is when you've got a cold. And what you can do with a baby, you can't do a lot with a baby, obviously, but you can, if they have a cold, you can cut up an onion or slice up an onion and you can put it on a plate in their bedroom, and they will breathe in the onion fumes, and it will help to clear the airways. And it's a fairly old remedy that to cut up an onion on a plate will help to take the fumes out of a freshly painted room. Also, if you've got a bad smell in the fridge, obviously you must remove the cause of that bad smell, but if you put a chopped onion on a plate, it can absorb any of the bad fumes that may be lingering after the offending article has been removed from the fridge. So raw onion can be used like that. Now there's another remedy for raw onion, and you might be surprised at this one, and this remedy is for a cough. Let's say someone's got a bad cough, and I'll give you a story to illustrate. I was at my daughter's house in America, and she's got a little 3-year-old boy, and she put him to bed. He had a bit of a cold, and we were listening, and he coughed, and he coughed, and he coughed, and he coughed. And you know what it's like, you just think he'll go to sleep any minute. Half an hour later, he's still coughing. So I said to Emma, get him up and we'll put the onion poultice on his feet. Because up near the face, up near the eyes, it can irritate, so we'll put it on the feet, because the feet are a reflex for the rest of the body. Specifically, the feet are a reflex for the chest, the feet are a reflex for the head, and the feet are a reflex for the abdomen. So what we did was we chopped up the onion, like I'm doing right now, and we got 2 little plastic bags. Now, James is only 3, so little onions is good for a little one. And we put about a tablespoon of onion in one plastic bag, and we put a tablespoon of onion in another plastic bag. And then we put his feet in the plastic bag. So his foot, the bottom of his foot, is sitting on the onion. And then you pull the plastic bag up around his ankle and put a sock on. And then put him back to bed. So what's he got on? He's got his feet in the onion bag. And his feet, the bottom of his feet, where the biggest pores are in the whole body, are sitting on the onion. Now, not one more cough. And he'd been coughing for over half an hour. Not one more cough. Now, I know you're going to be keen to try this one, and it is so simple. Does the onion burn the bottom of the feet? No, it doesn't. And he slept with that on all night, and there was not one cough for the rest of the night. So it's an amazing treatment, so simple and yet so powerful. I had a lady ring me. She was about to be admitted to hospital with pneumonia. She's 23. She said, I don't want to go to hospital. I was admitted a month ago. I was put on strong antibiotics that made me so sick and it didn't really help. She said, so pneumonia is a pretty bad situation. So I said, come, we'll do what we can. We had a program on, so it was convenient. And I said to her, just a little tip on your way. She had a 5-hour drive. I said, cut up an onion, put half in one plastic bag, half in the other bag. Now, sorry, she didn't have to drive with the onion on her feet. Her boyfriend was driving. And I said, put your feet in those plastic bags and put a sock on. Well, she thought that was pretty strange, but she was willing to do anything. When she got to our health retreat, she was just smiling. She said, I'm in awe, she said. She said it lessened my tightness. She said it seemed to open my bronchioles. This is on the feet. Very simple treatment. Now, she was with us. When she came to us, she was on Ventolin, she was on cortisone drugs, and she was on anti-inflammatories. And we did some hot and cold water fomentations on her lungs, her chest. We'll tell you about that one in a minute. And we put onion on her feet every night, and we got her inhaling peppermint oil. And within the third day, she was off all her medication. She started to walk up the hills with all the other guests, and she had just finished her nursing. And that was a year ago. She's now been 6 months a naturopathic student. She said, I know where I'm going now. So she'll be an excellent naturopath. Now what I'm going to do now is make onion syrup. Now this is one of the best cough syrups that you can make. And it is so easy, and everyone loves it, especially when the children aren't used to sugar, which my children weren't. I've put a layer of chopped onion in a jar, and now I'm going to put approximately a teaspoon of honey. This must be good honey, it's very thick. And you know, the best honey is thick honey. So that's about a teaspoon of honey. Now another layer of onion, another teaspoon of honey, needs 2 hands. Now by the end of this evening, a syrup should have formed. Can you see what I'm doing there? Now I'm putting another layer of onion. Now, because I don't want to spend another 5 minutes peeling and chopping another onion, this is all I'm going to do, but you certainly can fill your jar. So we'll put an extra dose up on, we'll put maybe 2 teaspoons of honey on the top. And I'm glad we've got this thick honey, because all honey should be like that. Do you know a lot of honey has got glucose syrup in it, which is just sugar water. So whenever honey is thin and runny in the winter, get worried. It's got sugar in it. And my children used to put honey on their porridge, and you know, they dig it out like candied honey, but as soon as it goes in the porridge, it melts. So can you see that? It's a great illustration because the honey's quite dark. Now that honey's just sitting there with the onion, but in about an hour, you'll see a syrup formed. Now this is a cough mixture. And if someone's got a bad cough, they can have a teaspoon of that 3 times a day, or a child could have a half a teaspoon 3 times a day. So if your child's coughing very badly, give them a teaspoon of onion syrup, chop up the onion in 2 plastic bags, wrap it on their feet and put them to bed. They should and you should have a nice sleep that night. So that's another thing that you can do with the onion, is the onion syrup.